Contention 1 is framing. The rule of the battle is to endorse a positive strategy that challenges the dominant ideology of gender violence. Nicholson, 89. Feminists are not satisfied with a negative structure. You must have a vision of a better future that can motivate people. Feminist theory strengthens critique by introducing political issues of race, class, gender, essential to pedagogy. The point of pedagogy gives students the opportunity to reinterpret the problems. We must listen to what it means to be excluded from a conversation. We need educators making sure that no serious voices are left out. Meta-ethics are shaped by gendered assumptions. Morality can be based on abstract rules that rely on white masculine subjects. Reason or not. 92. Feminist moral theory seems way out in left field. This formalist dispositional account of morals must abandon the liberal conception of the self and its accompanying monological model of moral deliberation. Maintaining coherence requires the trip to left field and endorsing a radicalized conception of autonomy and allowing for the possibility that social divisions may be embedded in the structure of things to infect the meaning of discourse. Deep assumptions have dominated Western philosophy. These assumptions have systematically privileged the point of view of a particular group of people and have reinforced dualistic ideologies of masculinity and femininity. The call for a neutral point of deliberation is an attempt to androgynize our argument. Huber 2K. The fantasy of disembodiment is another key feature of rational masculinity, which arises from the mind-body split so that the masculine reason can be separate from the body. The fantasy of disembodiment sustains bourgeois masculine privilege, and bourgeois men appear natural leaders. Impersonal relations are associated with objectivity, and science emotions are perceived as threatening to a bourgeois masculine subjectivity. The body poses a threat to masculine pure relations, and so do emotions acting only from reason serves to strengthen the autonomy of men with their identity. Defending opposition to feminine dependency, men have become an instrument of thought and goal-oriented in action. Contention 2 is privacy is gendered. 1. Exposing candidates for sexual harassment forces accountability to the public. Predators can no longer get away with unacceptable behavior. Arnold, 17. Elected officials harass employees have been allowed to keep a behavior secret. Congress utilized the system that hides sexual harassment in place that and $17 million in settlement. We have no idea which members of Congress committed these acts and they've escaped accountability. And other sex offenders suffer serious consequences. In Congress, there's too many perpetrators remain hidden. It's already difficult for victims to come forward against a powerful public official knowing they were so professionally. Congress designed a system that protects harassment only allowed them to behavior to continue. Everyone agrees that if a candidate commits sexual harassment, voters have a right to know. This is the reason for creating the process to hide facts from voters and protect power. 2. Social power makes access to privacy rights unequal. Legal challenges are crucial. Roth, 99. Systemic power protect privacy for those with more power, invasion for those with less. Men and the public private have become more power. Women are subject to more surveillance than men. Evident in dynamics surrounding harassment. Sexuality is less powerful for women because bodies are more often sexualized and exposed. Women are given the more access to their bodies and normal self-disclosure on the part of women. Permeates social interaction. Disclosure gives power to the other person. Gender hierarchy is maintained by the privatization of sexual assets in the legal system. Privatization is ensured by a permission of victims' rights and exposing the victims' private lives and protecting the privacy of the accused. 3. Privacy rights solidify unequal distribution of power, which produces unequal surveillance. Only the powerful can protect information from exposure. Sexual harassment litigation is key to overcome this. Roth, 99. The public-private boundaries are arbitrary in changing the sexual harassment changes the boundary because it represents the occurrence of private behavior in the public sphere. Harassment reveals the importance of social power in defining privacy and the right to privacy and legitimacy in an area in which inequalities of power can happen and impeding arbitrary the boundary between the public and private. Certainly the influence of social power forms of social power reinforced by institutional discipline. Surveillance is most applied vigorously to those with the least ability to defend the boundary between their public and private lives. Those with more power have a great access to use surveillance, and the less powerful protect their power by preventing less powerful. These dynamics are evident on a large scale in racial domination. Sexualizing the arena in which surveillance operates to control someone's sexuality means exerting power to be while being able to protect one's own sexuality from exposure to this relations. Sexual harassment operates. 4. The idea of a firm public-private dichotomy is the discursive construction binaries like public-private, inside, outside, and self-other are how dominant groups maintain hegemony and legitimizes international violence. Rossi, in 9, dominant groups maintain hegemony by discourse means discourse makes real what it means to order, possesses meaningful distance, the possibility sets limits of critical rational is legitimized, anything else is liberal, irrational, silencing, othering of violence has ways in which we can be part of a discourse of violence that supports war, fear, and security become normal, hidden behind a complex system of institutional policy. We need a broader context. Violent conflicts are far from being particular expressions of unique conditions that are strongly influenced by culture and militarization. Gender violence is not unfortunate by products of these conflicts, but the tools and the goal. 5. Binary understandings of the world tilt our perception towards war. Making violence is a result of social and cultural relations that cannot be understood without gender. Cochran, 13. Ira disciplines speak from object and masculinity of statements intended to dominate messy. Culture detail is not quite easy to set aside. Ordinary aggression is not war. Women experience coercion in similar forms of war. So it could be a war fighting between two armies is only a tip of the iceberg of underlying institutions understood as asymmetric. War is no longer a single event that delivers conclusive political results. Conflicts tend to be timeless relations push the wheel around research between modern masculinism, work preparation, and war, patriarchal general relations, the root causes of militarism, and war institutions like warfare was born with the establishment of patriarchy theory of war and causation is flawed if it blocks of gender dimension. Strategy for peace must include changing masculinity. 6. The judge must portray any instance of masculinity and affirm femininity. Shatton, Ewing, 97. Men who reject traditional notion of masculinity or anything but rejecting such a position is also a political statement expressing the monstrous false part breaking the civility statement themselves not grasping a patriarchy because we're letting it die even the part that resides within himself. Men who truly aspire to have a feminist worldview should act according into every setting, every possible setting he finds himself in. When we envision the future without first undoing indoctrination, we reject unexamined assumptions in the future, recreating the old reality with women as his reference. He should always try to discriminate positively in favor of women. Plain. In a democracy, the public's right to know ought to be valued over the right to privacy of candidates for public office in instances where the candidate is committed or endorsed sexual harassment or sexual assault. Veronica for governor, no date. Just as there existing financial disclosure requirements by administration to require every individual seeking public office to disclose whether they have committed or endorsed sexual harassment or sexual assault. Contention 3 is solvency. 1. In a democracy, the public's right to know trumps the right to privacy for candidates on matters related to sexual harassment and assault. Allen and 3. Call for sexual disclosure by public officials the most plausible and grounded in the right to know, asserted by the general public. The public's right to know is not reducible one specific legal entitlement. Think of the public's right to know as a collective of several distinguishable rights to know, each one with their own set of correlative obligations that include right to know how candidates for office conduct and information enable citizens to effectively criticize government parties and accountability candidates for offices that include sexual privacy laws, backwards first open personal diaries for public screening to and for proprieties. 2. A feminist right to know upends patriarchal knowledge production. Gross 93. Of course, the reason is the consequence of historical privileging of conceptual or the corporal Western knowledge is disavow the body hegemony of the knowledge of the masculinities of commerce can be subverted upset through women's assertion of a right to know. 3. The AF challenges deployments of privacy that reinforce gender and racial hierarchies. Version 92. Categories of public and private have racial dimension, the legacy of slavery, racism, denied black women, protections from abuse of the white women have occasionally managed to claim the same legacy of black women without a white man's right to privacy, where they sometimes claim that in the ways that the anti-Asian black women that suggest that need to develop an anti-racist project that does not succeed at black women's expense, that attacks the racial and gender hierarchy embedded in hegemonic understandings of piracy and publicity, discursive privatization supports the private power of bosses over works, husbands over wives, blacks over whites, publicity is a weapon against state tyranny. It also exercises power of capital, husbands and fathers among others is not the case. The feminist perspective, the latest way is vulnerable to such people, those class, ethnic, or racial resentments can express them by disbelieving Hill.
Cool. Ready for class 6?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you fiat that the plan passes?
What do you mean by fiat that the plan passes? The answer is that if the plan were to pass, it would be a good idea.
So, do you fiat that the plan happens?
It depends on your definition of fiat, and I think that the pre-fiat, post-fiat distinction is similar. The answer says that if the plan were to happen, it would be good.
Well, okay, that's fine. So what happens when the plan happens? Like when you implement it, like when a candidate runs for office, do they need to disclose their misconduct?
Well, so I don't know about the mechanism of it. My plan just says that candidates who run for public office ought to disclose, or it ought to be disclosed.
How do you do that?
So there are things like Freedom of Information Act requirements. It could be a requirement to run for candidacy.
But the candidate has to tell some external source that they have had a sexual misconduct allegation, right?
Well, it's not just like they tell somebody. It's like sometimes those things are filed in courts. Sometimes accusers come forward. It's not just like a candidate.
Why is the accusers coming forward part of the app? It seems like accusers can come forward in the status quo.
Yes, they can come forward in the status quo, but there are settlements that have been settled in courts that prevents accusers from coming forward in the status quo.
Wait, that doesn't prevent them. They take the settlement. Wouldn't that happen in the app
world as well?
Things
like NDAs and stuff that stop people from doing that.
Okay, so
and that's not really a relevant question to the app either. It's just the public's right to know ought to be prioritized over the candidate's right to privacy.
I know, you're repeating the plan. My question isn't that. My question is, when you implement it and a candidate does how does the public figure out that there's been this allegation? How does there's been sexual misconduct that's been
I'm not sure that the mechanism is a relevant question to the app.
Seems like it does if you need to solve.
I don't get why. If the public's right to know is valued over it and the public finds out about sexual harassment allegations, that'd be good. Things like
how do they find out? It seems like you need solvency to justify your plan.
Things like FIO, Freedom of Information Act.
Yourself. My question is, does the candidate disclose that information to FOI?
The candidate could disclose it themselves. It could be achieved through other means as well.
What other means?
We're literally going through circles. I don't think that the app has to specify that. I don't think the app has to specify that. It could be a requirement to run for candidate for public office.
Okay, so let's say in a world, so in the app world, a candidate could come forward or would say that I did this sexual misconduct, right? That's an example of the app, right?
Of a candidate coming forward and saying I've done this thing?
Yes.
That could be an example of the app, yeah.
Okay, so what's the solvency?
What is the solvency? Well, there are 3 cards about that. The first card is the Allen card, which talks about the right to know not being a sort of monolith or just one specific right. Rather, the app is a sort of starting point for broader struggles against hegemonic masculinity in the status quo. And it says that specifically the public's right to know over sexual privacy sort of for people.
So, what happens to the candidates, for example?
What happens to the candidates?
Yeah, does the public know, do they get voted out of office? How do you prove that the candidates, for example?
I would say that candidates would be voted out of office. There's an example in the first card in the contention that talks about how in a Kentucky state legislature, a bunch of people lost their seats over sexual harassment allegations. It could also just be if you have those allegations, you can't run for, or if you don't disclose it, you just can't run for office. People will probably vote them out.
Yeah, sure. The Roth evidence talks about how privacy rights are inherently unequal. The analysis for why privacy rights are unequal seems to be just a general analysis why rights via the legal system are unequal, right?
Well, no.
Why not?
It's an analysis as to why women are more exposed in society, so their bodies are less
rights and legal systems, right?
I don't know about the legal system. It's just in society. The public-private dichotomy is what we criticize, not the legal system.
Okay. Cool. Sorry. CX checks. I want you to defend Horowitz.
Horowitz?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Sweet. So you assume the plan gets passed, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, sweet. The Cockburn evidence is just like all binaries are bad.
The Cockburn evidence is, it says that binary understandings of the world, specifically public, private, masculine, feminine, etc., tilts our perception towards war making.
Why does war making matter?
Why is war making bad? Why is gender violence bad? Why is rape international
why
bad?
is war making bad? That is, I did not ask the other questions.
So the evidence says that the war making leads to militarism internationally, which causes things like rape in other countries and gender violence.
That's what the evidence says?
Yes.
Okay. What is the impact, or like the implication of the Ewing and Schacht evidence?
That the judges should always betray their masculinity and discriminate positively in favor of women or femininity.
Does that mean like affirm, auto-affirm, or like what's the
I
implication?
know what you mean by auto-affirm. It
like,
just says that.
what's the implication of it in the like round? Like what does it mean if you win this?
So it could be like a tiebreaker argument. It could be that judges have a bias against feminine perspectives that they should try to overcorrect for. But it's not just like I said women vote F.
Stop, Brent. 28 seconds left.
How many?
28.
Oh, y'all probably don't know how to do this very well. Let's flash drive around.
Yeah, I was around for the end of the flash drive era, all right? I remember the
And I
good
told
old-
you actually have to pass down and stand behind the opponent.
For the last like 5 tournaments.
Remember when you had to print out paper and then you could see before the speech and you had to flip over documents and you
Novice
had to
year.
So like
Novice year, Apple Valley.
okay, so like for the last
2013.
for the last 5 tournaments, me and my friend had been like considering printing out our new apps and reading them on paper, but like LD people can't really flow, so we realized that wasn't a good idea for the judges.
That is a valid point.
And it looked really bad if like we had the judge have the speech doc and then the opponent not have the speech doc, so we're looking also environmental.
I mean, whatever, that's on your opponent. Learn how to flow.
Yeah, I know, but you're one of the good judges that doesn't need the speech doc always, but there are some people who are just always looking at the speech doc.
Orders 2 off case, and then I sent the speech doc, and I'm going to flash it now.
On the cases are just top down?
No, there'll be like, there's a card that I'm going to read, and then it'll be top down.
Okay.
Can I borrow your stand?
What?
Can I borrow your stand?
Yeah.
Oh wait, for you it worked.
Yeah, it was definitely like a my email thing.
Thank you though.
It's kind of tall for me. It's okay. Right. Oh shoot, my word glitched. Give me 1 second.
Sorry, you said NCAC?
Oh no, 2 off case. everybody good?
Yep.
Yeah? Alright. Oh, my phone turned off. Nice. Our thesis, neoliberalism has fundamentally changed our interaction with material world. Semi-capitalism is ingrained in our society and created an oversaturation of information. The feminist fantasy of political change is re-infringed semi-cap by ignoring how future orientations are always rooted in modern capitalism. Regarding neoliberalism produced lasting damage to material structures of the world, questioning the power capitalist corporations never will change daily life. Society changes happening every day. Change is not happening in the sphere of social consciousness. Change happens in the spectacular sphere of politics. Neoliberal fanaticism surviving during the agenda empowers the world. Neoliberal politics have failed, but social autonomy has a number of the answers not to be found in political strategy. Struggle the infrastructure change and is jeopardizing the very possibility of solidarity. Finding solace in identitarian tactics such as feminism, Jews resistant to the replication of violence, investigating an identity's origin, reality, or natural rather than an arbitrary social product, limits the horizons of subjectivity and communication. Communal identity becomes a basis for an exclusive production of truth and meaning, forming the basis for fascism, mutual aggression, violence. Priority 15. Identity searching for the place from whence an enunciation comes is mistaken from the one of a natural origin. Community is mistaken to mean a natural private place belonging, transforming into the source of meaning. The temporary and transitional convention which gives meaning to signs strengthens. Identity is the opposite style, which is singularity, a map of orientation, flexible and changing style, which never has a normative feature. Identity is a limitation upon comprehension and interaction. Dangerous to mistake it as a condition of authenticity, is a condition of mutual aggressiveness, racism and violence and fascism. Identity leads to the belonging of criterion of truth. It's dangerous to mistake our cultural map for the inner territory belonging. Without a map, one gets lost, but getting lost at the beginning of the process of knowledge is the premise for creating any map. The absence of fiat is an instance of mythological progress. The notion of a better future was fabricated by capitalism to expand the economy of knowledge, but now in the age of semi-capitalism, nothing has changed beside our infiltrated psyche. Priority 3. The myth of the future is rooted in capitalism, the experience of the expansion of economy knowledge. The idea that the future will get better is the imaginary effect of the bourgeoisie production model. Modernity has been defined an implication limits the world of capitalist economy results in the accumulation of surplus value that results in constant enhancements of the spheres of goods and knowledge. The future is over. This panic is a global civil war. The stock exchange no longer reacts to massacres, violence is economized, and combat zones continue to proliferate. That accelerates infinitely wars everywhere, which non-unique or impacts. This oversaturation of information disidentifies peoples and distances them from themselves and their identity, resulting in mental exhaustion and apathy. Thus, the world battles endorsed to be a better reject semi-capitalism party. For science producing a circulated growing speed, the human mind is put under growing pressure. Finally, semi-capitalism crisis overproduction. The crisis is also psychopathic. Semi-capitalism not but the production of material goods, but psychostimulation. The social organism is unable to process the overwhelmingly complex experience of metropolitan chaos. The alternative is to embrace depression. Politics only complete exhaustion of the system by embracing the frugality of life. Can we withdraw from the trend towards absolute drive priority? Exhaustion can become the beginning movement towards a wu-wei civilization based on withdrawal and frugal expectations for life. Radicalism can abandon the mode of activism. Passivity would threaten relentless productivity that neoliberal politics has imposed. To divert this implicit trend from the direction of towards a new kind of autonomy. If it is possible, only we start from exhaustion. If we emphasize the side of withdrawal, exhaustion can give wave to a huge wave of withdrawal from the sphere of economic change. A new refrain could wipe out the law of economic growth. Next up. Interpretation. The affirmative may not specify an instance in which the public's right to know is valid or candidate privacy violation you did in sexual misconduct. Now, standards one sexuality. Any other definition ignores a direct placement of omission of words of resolution. Resolution doesn't specify a specific instance. By far, most sexual definition avoids ever making the assumption because the resolution only thing we're given for the round. Bringing factuals is the most important thing in the round. Otherwise, neither of us can come into round. Common understanding basis for argumentation means sexuality is independent of it. It precludes our ability to make arguments or engage in your position. Second, it limits parameterization and explosions. They express an infinite amount of situation, type of right or specific information by candidates. F is concerned to just a specific right. The negative is confined to a specific subset or decided component where the F can have infinite different plans, which also causes the next counterpoint to decided condition does negative to be reactive to the F plan. That puts an infinite pepper in the negative. There are infinite amount of F's on topic you expect limit controls the interlinked for instance. Second makes instruction impossible mean engage. Third, TVA solves all the reviews so you can defend the whole result just as a plan B their specific advantage. That gets me equitable access grant also allows them to have strategic utility. Their plan now voters fairness voter debate competitive nobody would have incentive to be in debate if the round was going to be skewed against them. Also it's an unconditional constraint rebel which means it comes prior to any other layers. 8 point is the epistemic skew. We cannot evaluate the truth of their arguments insofar as I was not able to engage in them. B point is the conflation of the pre and post distinction. Their advocacy relies on winning some sort of advantage to the plan itself or their pedagogy related to their plan, whereas mine is a construct of necessities, judgment mentioned, and actually, yeah, and then no RVIs. 8 point incentivizes debaters really for arguments one off the RVI. B point, you should win to proving your topical this specific topic. C point, RVIs make the debate only about theory, killing stops of education, competing in terms. 8 point, reasonability is arbitrary. Back judgment mentioned is determined what's reasonable. B point, reasonability creates a race to the bottom by proving just you win just by proving your topical or incentivizes debaters come as close to the bottom as possible. C point, reasonably collapse competing interpretation. We would be when competing broad lines, which implicitly concedes the need for competition between rules and drop the debater. 8 point, it sets a norm for debate, and B point, it wouldn't make sense to drop the arg because it would functionally drop their advocacy or be evidence. Now the case, I'll read the thing in the doc, then I'll line by line. Huge in the case of plan, blatantly ignores the right to privacy survivors and broadcasts their experience to the public regardless of their wishes. Not only that, though, the last time we saw the plan was when Dr. Christine Blasey Ford's private letter about harassment released against her wishes, unleashing death threats and constant personal attacks that have continued these days. Ryan's sexual violence is about power and control. Survivors often feel powerless. Supporting survivors means helping them in their experiences on their own terms. Respecting confidentiality is essential. We need to support survivors, giving them power and control of their own life experiences. Ford is their credibility subjected to relentless attacks. She's had her email hacked and been impersonated online. The vitriol has been so intense that she has to move her family out of their harm. Do not allow the one area to shift out of these arguments. I attempted to pin them down in the process. They say candidates, for example, would have to tell that information to some sort of group, and then public would access the information. But insofar as a candidate is telling that information, that means the survivor does not have a say in whether or not that information is disclosed, or whether or not that information really, which is a violation of the autonomy of the case. Starting at the top. Overview: the critique rule developed as a prior question. 8 point is fiat as a loser. There's no reason why the plan actually happens, which means you do not leverage the benefits of it against. 3 points. 8 question about methods. 5 the idea of fiat and your focused identity politics is something that just re-entrenches the causes you create, and creates apathy, which means we can't access identity in the first place. Which means the critique is a prior question evaluating these cases, these arguments. Contention to the first argument. You say creates accountability, but there's no enforcement. There's no way to guarantee that candidates will come forward actually disclose the information. You should hold them to a very high threshold. They should be able to prove that solvency actually occurs, and they have not read evidence that proves that solvency will occur, or candidates will come forward with that information. The one here, the process is very sketchy. Do not allow re-articulation. The second argument, they say rights are always unequal. In turn, the rights in the legal system will always be unequal, which means you just re-entrench the system by focusing on a right to the right to know, which would also be disproportionately used. Male candidates would not be forced to disclose this information. Third, you make this public-private distinction argument, but the public-private distinction just isn't topical. It refers to a distinction between the public and domestic situation, not issues between two individuals that are revealed. The resolution by privacy and individual concept, which means right privacy allows women to decide whether or not they want to release that information, which is good for empowerment. Outweighs your case. And the last argument is that also turn the efforts hyper surveillance of these accusers, which means it re-entrenches the public-private distinction. When survivors come forward, people doubt them. There's about backlash, which means it's necessarily worse. The fourth argument is about the dichotomy. You can trust by the argument I already made. Now the fifth argument, you say binary understandings are bad, but you reinforce it with no attempt at understanding intersectionality, and also which means that you create the exact same impacts that you also say you should affirm femininity before masculinity, but you would still be voting for a male regardless, which means that you're not affirming femininity even if you voted for it. So this argument should not be unique to other contention. 3, your second argument, you say that feminists right to know deconstructs patriarchal knowledge production, but what turn privacy privacy allows us to have conversations about experiences and survivors to have those conversations, which means there's no backlash. Otherwise, putting it in the public advice, and also turn the third argument, privacy is key to not being opaque in society, being unintelligible, which means that it's the only way we can actually privacy as a concept is the only way we can abstract away from society, and society is fundamentally opposed to minorities.
Good?
Yep.
Okay, status of the alternative?
Condo.
Okay. So what does it mean to, or what does the alternative do?
The alternative is an example of depression politics, which means exhausting the system. We said render to the fact that semi-cap is inevitable, and attempt to deconstruct the system by accepting the inevitable.
Okay, so surrender to the fact that sexual assault is inevitable and that we shouldn't keep those people out.
Surrender to the fact that sexual assault, the state will prevent us from actually creating change or stopping sexual assault, and then figuring out a different solution, i.e. embracing exhaustive or depression politics.
Okay, so if you say that this, I guess the link level stuff, you say, I feel like you're saying that the F only focuses on femininity versus masculinity and ignores either identity struggles. Is that the link argument?
I guess that could be a potential link argument. I think the more general argument is focusing on one branch of identity in general. Even if you allow for things like intersectionality, the focus on one group means it becomes an exclusive thing.
Wait, why?
Why? Sure. So the Berardi 15 evidence indicates that identity is something is a limitation upon the comprehension and interaction.
I guess I'm wondering what part of the F is identity politics though?
What?
What part
I think
of the F is
the entirety of
identity?
the F justifies why we need to for example, your argument about we should intervene in favor of feminism versus masculinity. Those are arguments that focus on specific identity categories.
Okay. How would this reconcile with the last Fraser card that I read in the F that's we should focus on an intersectional approach that helps black women and recognizes the racialization of sexual assault as well?
No, it's not a question of intersectionality. Intersectionality is still a form of identity politics,
Okay,
right?
so
You're focusing on identity groups.
So what is the alternative to identity politics then?
What?
What is the alternative to identity politics?
What does it do to identity politics?
What is the alternative to identity politics?
The alternative to the critique.
So let's talk about it a little bit more. What does depression politics do? What does it mean to exhaust the system?
Sure. So I think a good example of depression politics is actually in the Hunger Games. So the first movie, pop culture reference. So basically what happens is it's just Katniss and Peeta at the end, right? What?
Yeah, I watched it.
Oh, well, it's trust me, it's part of the story. So they're the only two left, and one of them has to kill each other, and they refuse to engage in the system or capitalism and say, no, we will just both kill each other and exhaust the system that way, refuse our ability to engage in the system and deny them what they want.
What does refusing to engage in the system do to break down the public-private dichotomy or
I think all of those arguments are
out of office?
I think the critique would indicate all of those arguments are just are constructions of semi-capitalism.
Okay, why?
And what?
Why?
They rely on society, and I've one that, or my argument is that society is defined by semi-capitalism.
What is semi-capitalism?
What is semi-capitalism?
Yeah.
Sure. So the Berardi makes a distinction between like the old capitalism, which is like the proletariat capitalism that like Marx talks about, where it's like we get alienated from our labor and things like that. But his argument is like there's so much information in the modern world that is a new form of capitalism, just like that cannot be avoided because we're oversaturated with all the information.
Can information ever be good?
What?
Can information ever be good?
What do you mean?
Like
I say the current the status quo understanding of information is bad.
Okay. Can the proliferation of information ever be good?
Like depends on the context, I'd say.
Okay. Right.
It's only fair.
Okay, 107. It'll be the case, theory, critique.
Or is it in the speech?
Yep.
What do you say? Case theory K?
Yep.
How it works for you.
Case theory critique.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Oh, this is the wrong side for the paper. We'll do that.
29 pages. Oh. never
Yeah, I
mind.
just put it still on top.
He's reading through 29 page material format. He's magically gotten.
Yeah.
Or just like a bunch of blockers like once anyway.
Good? Everybody good? Yeah? Cool. Outing sexual harassers breaks down the public-private dichotomy. It shows its arbitrariness because sexuality is considered private and harassment incurs a public, both exposing this contradiction and revealing such a private matter. In public breaks the boundary. Thus, the Roth evidence this comes on a higher level than the rest of the round. It affects how we view people out around and interact with the world around us. The line by line. This Ryan evidence is about broadcasting survivors to the public. This is not what the affirmative is because it just discloses the complaints against the candidate, not who the complaint came from or the identity of the survivor, which obviously means that we don't link to any of this. And it's not a shift because this is never what we said. The role of the battle argument, the role of the judge is to affirm femininity and reject masculinity. masculinity. The judge must endorse a model of education that always discriminates positively in favor of women. Male judges don't have the jurisdiction to vote negative because they're psychologically more inclined to vote against the feminist scholarship. Voting F is a political statement that exposes masculinity's false power that lets the patriarchy wither and die. Non-male judges should also expose the false reality of the patriarchy and betray every part of it. This society is attempting to invest in us. That's Shat and Ewing. Also, the fiat is illusory argument. Fiat is good for consequential distancing, even if it's illusory. It also consider the broad implications of our actions in a large scale instead of just acting in an ideological, pure way like the alternative. The next argument is no enforcement. Yes, there is enforcement. This topic allows us to fiat is because it's just a question of one right being prioritized over another, and which means that we do get it. Also, yes, there is enforcement because things like lawsuits and the Freedom of Information Act things or candidacy requirements solve that. The rights get taken away argument, our rights are always unequal. No, we don't necessarily grant a right to more women. Rather, we increase surveillance and on masculine bodies, which breaks down the private economy and equalizes the playing field. The next argument is that it's not that privacy is between individuals. Yes, I already addressed this above. That it's about how harassment occurs in public, but it's seen as private, which is bad. The next argument is that it causes hypersurveillance of accusers. I already just above. We don't disclose the identity of accusers. That reinforces with the intersectionality argument. We do have intersectionality. The Fraser evidence at the bottom says that we do something that recognizes the racialization and gender portions of it. The next argument is that the framing stuff is about voting for a man regardless. It's not about voting for a man versus a woman, but rather masculinity versus femininity, which I did above. The next two arguments, it's solved by the sort of we don't disclose privacy argument. Theory. That's the wrong counterinter. Counterinterpretation. The affirmative does not have to defend a whole resolution and specify a right to privacy, and a right to know vague references to privacy are insufficient. There's no consensus on what a right to privacy actually means. Doyle and Barjari. And 5. Difference to privacy may be extremely broad. Privacy describes the right to be level and patent defines the privacy in terms of information and information not having undocumented personal information. Privacy defines privacy broadly as the limit access to extents of solitude, secrecy, and anonymity. Specifying and vague references to the right to know are too broad. Emerson 76 not clear whose right to know is, even if all white space to be guaranteed process injured would without defending your offense. Defending whole rights is impossible since the public's right to know isn't one legal entitlement but a collection of different rights with specific obligations. Debate would become too shit passing because we're talking about very distinct rights to know that in speech. That's Alan. B. Gravity. What shift in the 1AR, what the defender get a blank so we don't expect C minus is a notable optional plan that moves worse next to answer the 1AR, and it can reach an allegation structure bias because the next speech which is worse. The defense, there's no textuality. Offense is the different definition, so now there should I have to. Also, the TVA doesn't stop in for offense because they can just pick out of the advantage area that I had, which means that we would never be able to read responses to it, and it dilutes discussion of gender balance. The critique. You should weigh the implementation of the affirmative versus the alternative in the process of advocacy is necessary for detailed clash and building advocacy skills outside of the defendant field above. Abstract theorizing is bad in laws, material harm to contain about 2 to 80. The multiple conscious that urges and liberal choice is suitable from the standpoint of price that is the world is accessible to all of us. The concrete particularly details are acceptable. Abstraction and detachment are way out of discomfort and direct competition with the arguments of repression. Abstraction allows theorists to discuss with no connection to what those concepts mean in people's like mainstream intellectual theorizing with training values abstraction to integrate and need to be detailed. How I talk about language, meaning, sign, can all ask race and sexist arguments. We ever talk about to ask what exactly are you talking about? What is implication does it have for what you're saying? Mark that card and saying permutation do both. It cannot solve the case and just surrendering to the depression. Politics doesn't do it. Not engaging the system does not force sexual assaulters out of office, which is what the affirmative does. And if it can overcome the links to the status quo, it can overcome the links to the F. They don't get to weigh the impact of the semi-capitalism as a whole, but only the specific links to the F replace, and they don't have one to the F, which is that it doesn't matter. Harassment is a tool of class warfare. This turn outweighs the link for harassment is a matter of class domination as well. The same as harassment workplace practice, the practice to maintain the power of the form of the law of sexual harassment. In case workers power in the workplace and scheme power of the school should be the higher on the agenda of every liberal organization. Also, change can't happen, or when I see evidence says examples of people in the Kentucky legislature being forced out of office after votes came in and they were exposed as a sexual harasser. Also, people like Roy Moore proved the argument. Also, they're focusing on women specifically because class resistance gets watered down is co-opted by white males who are just like, I'm resisting the system because I'm a totally radical dude without ignoring the actual violence that gender violence has.
What was the last one?
That not focusing on gender violence specifically is bad because it allows like white dudes to be like, oh, I'm just radical and against the system, and not recognize the material impacts of gender violence and skirt those to the side.
What? How much time did I have left?
I just see you. I think you shot it.
28, I think. Yeah.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, I thought about it. I was like, I'm just gonna watch the ball game.
Alright, it's time. Orders, critique, or theory briefly, critique.
Let's see it.
Theory really briefly, critique, PC. This does not seem to be alright, whatever. Okay. Hey. Yeah. Theory really quickly, critique, PC.
No new cards?
Alright. Everybody?
Where are we?
Theory really briefly, critique, starting with an overview. Critique is Alright. Yep. Is everybody good?
Yep.
Kicking the shell, not go if you're there, was no RVI, which means you cannot the theory is not valid, you should know the critique.
Clear.
Overview on the critique, your arguments may be true in a logical sense. It could be potentially good that you have to X, but the question is why their presentation is good. Why did they introduce in this space? Why information in general is valuable? The problem is they concede argument that fiat is a form of mythological progress. They just make or justify arguments for why fiat is good, but they've conceded a very big dissent, the priority through evidence that indicates that fiat is something that is a form of mythological progress. It ignores the fact that semi-capitalism is something that is ingrained in society, and the use of fiat abstracts away from the fact that we can actually abstract away from the fact that it is something that is in society. You've also conceded the mental exhaustion and apathy impact, and you've also conceded that controls the internal to you being able to leverage your plan in the first place, because if oversaturation information is true, that means we can not comprehend the plan or not comprehend what the plan itself does, or this exhaustion means that we cannot engage in the politics or the identity politics or the politics that the affirmative proposes because of the oversaturation information that we disidentify with ourselves and do not understand our relation to our own identity, which is probably the terminal defense of why you cannot cross-apply case, and also reason why the critique is a problem with the is a method is set to the affirmative. Line by line, the starting on the abstract theorizing is battering me. This isn't a form of abstract theorizing. It's a structural analysis of what causes oppression in the first place, which means we can understand how materiality functions, because all of materiality is inevitably linked to semi-capitalism. It's not a form of abstract theorizing insofar as the alternative is something that can be concrete. We can withdraw from society and embrace the frugality of life and embrace the fact that semi-capitalism is something that's inevitable, and we withdraw through the depression politics. The problem is you just not contested the alternative. And third is that the affirmative is also a form of abstract theorizing insofar the only argument that he's gone for is the public-private distinction, which is a very abstract concept, not based on whether or not he wins a plan actually solves and he solves anything. In the permutation, he says you should just do, but the problem is that alternate the links are all the links that you've considered just attached to the permutation, which means you cannot leverage it. And second is that you cannot do the double binary argument. Just does not make sense insofar as the one that you create oversaturation information. The fact that you choose to engage in semi-capitalism means you will be oversaturated. The alternative is a radical shift, which means doing the affirmative, and then the alternative would be incoherent because we would continue to be oversaturated with information. The alternative would say that we should not fiat the plan, and we should not pretend to revolve discussions around specific identity categories, and we should not fiat the plan. If those are true, then that means which means that only the alternative has chance of solving. Also, the double permutation is just a really shitty permutation. You should not vote in it. Even if they win, there's no solvency. The alternative, that is not what the alternative needs to prove. The alternative just needs to prove the alternative is a good idea, and exhaustion politics is something that in theory could take us away from semi-cap. Now, also the problem is the alternative's case, Saul's case, you conceded the argument is that depression politics is the only way we understand identity in the first place, and it's the only way we can deconstruct identity groups and the notions of hypermasculinity. I would be engaged in depression politics. Semi-capitalism is something that is ingrained in society and is responsible for the distinctions that you claim are super problematic, which means the only way we deconstruct those distinctions is to remove ourselves from society itself or embrace exhaustive politics. The alternative that links you made really quickly. Your first argument, you say harassment is a form of class warfare. 8 points that says that this argument was supposed to be read against generic capital, not semi-capitalism, which means you should draw a line from the 1 area to 2 area to see if this argument was actually implicated in terms of the critique. Obviously was not a big point. Is even if harassment is a form of class warfare, that you would still engage in things like information and attempt to solve these things through fiat, which means that the solvency mechanism EC is especially problematic. And same point is even if this harassment thing is a root of the public-private distinction, the alternative obviously solves another second argument. You say change cannot change cannot happen, but change cannot happen like in context of the harasser. But 8 points insofar as you consider all self cases, argument obviously goes away. 3 point is I'm still winning a risk of a link. Even if there's no change, that oversaturation information you continue to proliferate, something that makes us apathetic to gender violence that we actually see in the real world, because there's just so much information. The last time you say not focusing on identity issues allows white people to say really radical things. 8 points that as long as I've proven that the gender violence is something that also allows people to say, oh, look at me, look at my radical idea. I may extend this argument into debate rounds, for example, say, look at my radical idea of being a feminist. Those arguments obviously apply here. B point is this argument does not make sense insofar as if one that fiat is something that is illusory. You can say fiat is something that is good because we can determine the consequences, but the problem is it still does not exist. Even if you win fiat is a good practice, it is not something that exists in the round and does not actually do anything for you, which means that you can outweigh the benefits of the case against the critique itself. Now, extend the Baradian says that the thesis claim that says that semi-capitalism is ingrained in society, which means we never understand our interactions with it. Extend the Baradian 2 hours is that focusing on identity is something that is a form of limitation. Focusing on one identity category allows us to be limited by things like semi-cap. This link was just 100% conceded. There's no defense or why you do not do this, and insofar as I'm winning a risk of of a link, you should vote on the alternative. The alternative resolves the link. It also resolves the case extended priority for evidence. Says the world about it's rejecting capitalism. You've done no comparative weighing for which offense comes first, except the Metsuda evidence, and I've got an argument about how apathy precludes our ability to actually combat social violence. Now, extend the alternative is a form of depression. Politics allows us to remove ourselves away from society and remove ourselves away from society, except the fact that semi-capitalism is inevitable. If I'm winning the alternative, it solves the case proper. Starting on the Ryan evidence. Your only response to the Ryan evidence is that people should not be forced to disclose their identities, or that you would not force people to disclose their identities. That's not the argument I'm making. I'm saying the narrative of the survivor is something that's co-opted, which is an argument that you just have not responded to. I went, can't release the information of the story itself. There's a reason survivors did not come forward, even if, for example, they could still come forward anonymously, but the reason they do not come forward anonymously in some instances is because they want to have control over their own narratives, and which means that and the Ryan evidence is very explicit on this question. It says that survivors should be able to come to their own terms and be on their own terms when they're relating the story, which means that taking it out of their hands, which is what the affirmative is necessarily bad for gender politics, and a form of gender violence. It outweighs your other arguments. Your other arguments are very abstract, which are Metsuda evidence would indicate. The public-private distinction, you just concede the argument that is non-T. The privacy, the public-private distinction is something that's completely different. Being private means that being private is something that's a relative to an individual, whereas the public is the public sphere, which means privacy in this instance would mean people do not have to conform to the public sphere if they want to. So there's a distinction. You also see it's an outer ring impact. This argument makes no sense insofar as the one that our orientation towards semi-capitalism is something that is a per question. You also make this argument you should not vote for you should not for male debaters. Vishwan is also a male debater. He would be perceptually, psychologically influenced the same way.
Okay, I'll switch up. What was the second one argument on the KV extended? Was it the identity politics one? Okay. Case critique. Is everybody good? Yeah? Yeah? Cool. Alright. The plan exposes sexual harassment people and would stop those people from getting elected office. People like Roy Moore proved that our F is effective because it would expose sexual harassment allegations and kick those people, as well as dozens of Kentucky legislators that were exposed. Even if we don't solve the entirety of the public-private dichotomy, we definitely do solve instances of gender violence and harassment, etc. But we do break down the public-private dichotomy because we expose harassment as something that is not only a private form of violence, but also public, which breaks it down the line by line. This Ryan evidence is not what they say it is. This card is in the context of exposing the identity of who the assaulter or of who the survivor is. It says that respecting confidentiality is key. Not that the narrative, etc., needs to be controlled, which our AF would still let happen because it wouldn't expose survivors or their identities. It would just expose that an allegation was made against somebody, which even if they win their narrative argument, just saying that somebody was accused of sexual assault wouldn't necessarily expose the narrative as well. This, even if they win an impact of this, that case massively outweighs because it assaults gender violence on a larger scale as well as the war-making impact that got conceded throughout two speeches. The not topical argument I think I've already addressed, even if it's between individuals. This is a misunderstanding of my argument. I said that we should expose harassment as being something that is a public form of violence, whereas right now it's relegated to the private, which is harassment. The last argument is that the role of the judge is to portray masculinity and affirm femininity. Everybody in this room, the two debaters and the judges are all male, which means that you should reject your masculine, inherent masculine violence against feminist scholarship. Even if I'm a male as well, it's not voting for me, it's voting for feminist scholarship, and that you're inherently biased against those things, which means that they've massively undercovered. This is also a tiebreaker argument. There has been no weighing on the role of the ballot from their side. This is your thing that you can hang your hat on. You should betray your masculinity and affirm femininity in every instance because it is the only weighing argument for why it should come first. The critique. GG, they conceded my defense of fiat from the 1AR. Fiat is good for consequential distancing. It was on the case page on their World About argument, which was number 2. It is good because it allows us to consider the broad implications of our actions instead of acting in an ideological pure way, instead of acting only outside of ourselves, and consider what happens to other people in the real world, which takes out all of their offense, because literally the 2 hours just over and over again. Fiat is illusory. They've also conceded a theoretical reason why I got to wear the case page key to clash and nuanced emphasis, because the one issue was designed with weight implementation in mind, and they moon every single part of that. The information stuff, cross-sex, I asked them if information is any good. They said it can be contextual, which means that information does not always oversaturate society. They've conceded the example that there are cases empirically that prove that information can be used in a good way, i.e. exposing Roy Moore or other sexual assault people, which means that semi-capitalism cannot explain the case impact, because there are instances where it has been good when it proves that it can control everything. The Matsuda evidence is that abstraction is bad, that they don't actually do anything. The surrendering to a politics of depression doesn't resolve gender violence or kick people out of office, no matter what their also case argument is. But there's no explanation as to how they solve things like sexual assault, etc. And just because semi-capitalism might structure something, that doesn't mean that the result of material instances of this theorizing abstracts them away from material conditions and gives them, absolves them of any sort of part that white men might have, or men in general might have, in sexual assault, which justifies the permutation debrief. They can't solve the case. The oversaturation stuff was already answered. The only other link that they have was identity politics, but that's not the F. Also, if you can overcome the links to the F, you can overcome the links to the status quo, which means that their alternative would be enough to overpower it. It's not a question of doing the F and then the alternative, which would resolve everything, which solves the opposite. Good bit.